Good morning. Ah, I didn't hear that. Get my energy. Good morning. Ah, good morning. So, how many of you were here last couple of times or last time? Oh, good. A great repeat audience. I'm very happy. Thank you for coming again. And thank you everybody who is new today. This is turning into a monthly ritual we do now where we explore a complex subject from Indian wisdom or spirituality or worldwide, and we try and simplify it and understand it in a modern way, and that's our whole purpose. Today, the last two sessions we talked about, the first one was interesting because we talked about Soma and the psychedelic origins of religious experience, that how our culture, our religions went from plant consuming shamans and seers in ancient times through to meditation and spirituality later. And we went through that whole journey looking at the shamanic experience. And it was fascinating because what we realized was that the plant can give you an instant experience, but only meditation can give you a long-term, lasting experience that stays with you. And that was what we tried to discover at the first session. And the second session, we then went deeper and we went into Kundalini, where we looked at what was the neurobiology of the human body that actually is designed for spiritual experience. And if you haven't seen that, the talk is online on our Facebook page. You can see it from there. Just Facebook/Universal Quest, right? You'll see it there. And so please, if you want to, you can watch that there. There's a talk online as well. Today, I'm going to do a different format because normally I talk for about 30, 40 minutes and then we open it up. I'm going to actually only talk for about 10 minutes today, and then we're going to open it up. We have some, Dr. Karan Singh is here again, thank you. And Monish Verma is here also. You've seen him last two times. He's a co-founder with me on this Universal Quest Salon. And he is a student of Sri Aurobindo. And we will be discussing what is called the integral yoga or the integral way of meditation, right? But I want to start with a Socratic question, right? First of all, let me ask you, how many of you practice meditation right now? How many of you? Oh, high percentage, over 50%, over 50%. And how many of you practice meditation in a religious context, in a spiritual context, more from a religious background? Anybody else from a religious background? There you go, prayer and meditation. And so the rest of you are practicing meditation as a mindful technique, is that correct? To evolve your mind, right? Is that correct? You're using meditation for that. I'm going to ask a question now. And this is I'll start dialogue with you shortly, but let us look at, instead of what techniques of meditation are right and what is wrong and what different traditions teach, let's ask the question, what is meditation, right? Now, the Eastern word for meditation is much more complex than the Western word for meditation. Because in the Western terminology, Western meditation means contemplation or deep thought into a subject. That means when you reflect on something deeply, you're meditating on it. That is the actual definition of meditation. But in the Eastern concept, meditation comes from the origins of dhyana, right? Which is single pointed concentration that leads to the stilling of the mind, right? So today, most people, when they think of meditation, we are mostly going in that definition, which is that can we stop the activities of the mind, and therefore what? We'll come to that. Why? Why should we stop the activities of the mind? Now, as you know, there are hundreds of schools today of meditation. There's meditation, bhakti, tantra, mindfulness, vipassana, you name it. There's so many schools of meditation. But what they talk about is a path to something, a path to awakening, a path to enlightenment, right? And unfortunately, for most people, that implies that meditation is something to achieve something outside myself, right? It's something to achieve. it's something to go towards, right? But I have a problem with that because meditation, if it doesn't transform my life completely, if it doesn't make me a better person, if it doesn't make me spiritual, if it doesn't make me a better leader, a better human being, if I don't transform, meditation is not about something outside for me. It's about transforming yourself inside, right? So all the teachings, they'll say, do this mantra 108 times, follow this technique, do this japa prayer, do this, do that. These are just tried and tested methodologies of somebody who explored their own inner lives at some point, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is that, are you ready to ask your own questions like they must have done at some point in the past? Right? Am I ready to look at my own mind? Am I ready to still my mind so I can see? So I'm going to give you 3 general ideas that I have found with meditation, right? The first is that dhyana or chan or zen or mindfulness, these techniques, most of what people think of as meditation is a technique to get to a place of stability and silence, right? So if I teach you a technique, I'm not teaching you meditation. I'm teaching you how to get to a place of meditation, which is different, right? So when I say breathe like this, when I say this mantra, when I say concentrate on the candle and focus your mind, or do this this technique of look at a mandala, or focus on Jesus's picture, or Shiva, right? These are just techniques to get you to concentrate, to stabilize your brain, right? So the first objective of, which is in yoga and every tradition, is that somehow we want to stop the chatter of the brain, stop the brain from, continuously texting us. We want to stop the brain from doing that. We want to stop it. Just breathe. Am I here? Am I present? The second thing that happens when you do that is you arrive at a place of, and I'm going to play you an Alan Watts video just now, a place of complete awareness. Now, can you imagine that we think of ourselves as awake, but most of the time we're asleep. If you think about it, we're really asleep most of the time. We're either asleep by sleep, or we are asleep by distracting thoughts of the past. We're not, or what we might be doing tomorrow, right? We're never thinking in the here and the now, right? So, the total awareness means that by being still, am I present? So my question to you is that when you meditate, are you present where you are? Are you completely present? Are you aware, right? Then the third phase is where you can go into religion, activism, mind, better life, healthier living, which is called intention, which is acting on that, from that place. How do I act? So really speaking, to me, I feel I can distill the 3 stages of meditation down to that, which is still the mind, become fully aware, and then act in the world, right? Now, if I remove all the clutter of all the traditions, all the religions of the world, then what you do with that knowledge is next stage of that, right? So if you want to have a mystical experience of God, then that's the third phase, which is intention. I turn inwards, I turn towards God, right? If you want to be a good human being and do something good in the world, then I become action from that place, right? So I'm going to play a little video. It's a little video by Alan Watts, with Alan Watts talking. He started in the 1940s, and he was an English priest. And he quit the Anglican Church and became a Zen monk. And he also studied Vedanta. He was one of the great students of comparative religion, comparative mysticism. And in the 1970s in America, he became sort of a guru in his own way. where he started talking about, Eastern and Western wisdom coming together. And he was one of the great teachers. So if you ever get a chance, I highly recommend reading Alan Watts. It changed my life in a lot of ways. So
a person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions. By thoughts, I mean specifically chatter in the skull, perpetual and compulsive repetition of words, of reckoning and calculating. I'm not saying that thinking is bad. Like everything else, it's useful in moderation. A good servant, but a bad master. And all so-called civilized peoples have increasingly become crazy and self-destructive because through excessive thinking they have lost touch with reality. Most of us would have rather money than tangible wealth, and a great occasion is somehow spoiled for us unless photographed. And to read about it the next day in the newspaper is oddly more fun for us than the original event. This is a disaster. To get in touch with reality, there is an art of meditation, of what is called yoga or jhana in India, Chan in China, and Zen in Japan. It is the art of temporarily silencing the mind, of stopping the chatter in the skull. Of course, you can't force your mind to be silent. That would be like trying to smooth ripples in water with a flat iron. Water becomes clear and calm only when left alone.
So just to recap, when we ask ourselves the question, what is meditation? We have to ask ourselves a more important question, which is that, is it something outside myself, or is it something that suffuses and affects every part of my being? Right? This is the important question. Most people think of meditation as something I do at 5 minutes in the morning, or if I try, I can make 20 minutes if I'm lucky. It's not. Meditation is the art of observing yourself, observing your mind. Now, this is an exercise, this is a practice. This is not a formula, this is not a process, this is not a magical equation, right? This means that you are actually training yourself to watch your own mind. And why? Because if you think about it, the Krishnamurti, the great teacher, talked about that if you are by a river bank and you see the river, right? You see boats sailing by, you see birds in the sky, you see fish in the water. But the moment you start walking upwards and you go higher on top of a hill, you actually see the entire river. You see if two boats might collide. You see ripples when they occur when somebody throws a stone in. You yourself can throw a stone in. You become an observer, but you can also be a participant. Now, the art of meditation, and I'm going to come to the science later after we've talked for a while, is the art of getting to that higher perspective of yourself, right? So when you learn meditation, when you approach meditation, whether you come through it your religious tradition or you come through inventing it yourself in your own way just by sitting there, or you want to look at it through a process, think of it this way, that am I this chattering mind? Right? Am I this very busy thinking mind? Or am I Am I more than that? Am I able to observe that? Am I something that is also able to see every action before I take it, every thought before I have it, every word before I say it? Right? Now, from that place, it is amazing that what might unfold for you. So, if you think that learning meditation will give you samadhi or nirvana, until you accomplish emptiness and observation, you will never get even close to that. Right? So, the whole art of meditation is to get you to a place where you become the observer of your own reality. And then, like that person on the little rock standing over the water, when you throw in a pebble, when you throw in an idea, you manifest your reality. So meditation becomes a part of life. So I'm going to open it up now for discussion. Welcome everybody, and first of all, let us, Dr. Singh, would you like to start? Just your experience of.
I think there is an important difference between meditation and prayer. In meditation, you're looking inwards, whereas in prayer, you're looking outwards. This is very, very often the two words are used as if they were coterminous. They are not. For example, if my Ishta is Lord Shiva, when I'm praying to Lord Shiva, I'm not meditating. I'm praying. But when I'm meditating on a flame or on a void, whatever, then I'm not looking at any person. So first of all, that distinction I think needs to be drawn. It seems to me the Buddhists are better at meditation and the Hindus are better at prayer. That's a general statement, because all of the Buddhist meditation seem to be looking inwards, and the Hindu custom seems to be to look outwards towards a deity. Point number one. Point number two, the Buddhists talk about the shunya. You talked about the emptiness within. In Hinduism, it is exactly the reverse. For example, in the Upanishads, it is very clear. Hiranamaye pare koshe virjam brahma nishkalam tat shubhram jyotisham jyoti satat atma vido vidhu. In the furthest golden sheath resides the immutable Brahman. That effulgent light of lights, that is what the knowers of the Atman know. So for Hinduism, I would have thought that the inner would not be a void, it would be a light. The meditation revolves around light. And in fact, as you know, Swamiji, the inner light, there are 5 koshas, 5 sheaths in the Upanishads. There's our physical body, the Annamaya kosha. There's the pranic body, the Pranamaya kosha, which may be called the astral body or the emotional body. There's the Manomaya kosha, the mind. There's the Vijnanamaya kosha, the higher intelligence. And then there is the Anandamaya kosha, the blissful sheath. And it is within that 5th blissful sheath that the Brahman resides. So for me, meditation would not be looking for a void. Meditation would be looking for that light of lights within. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I would suggest to you one thing, that both Hindu and Buddhist and other techniques all are common in the achievement of the stillness required to see that inner light or to see the void, because the stillness is a part of that. Every tradition, whether you look at prayer, contemplation, Vedanta, Tantra, Buddhism, they all recommend a technique. Now, if you repeat a mantra, right, you are actually going to a certain frequency that stills the beta waves and you go to alpha state. From alpha state, you begin to see Shiva, you begin to see the light, you begin to illuminate your mind, and then you open up the chakras, right? Buddhism diverges there and says that there is no, that light itself is an in-between state. It's a cause of something else that's happening, which is coming from a void. So that third part I was talking about, which is intention, which is that the mystical region of meditation is one where the mind goes beyond consciousness towards super consciousness. And and Monish, maybe you can talk about that a little bit, on what the superconscious mind is about.
supermind has actually been talked about not just by Aurobindo, by many other thinkers as well. And what Aurobindo basically meant to actually say was that there is consciousness first. And then it's the consciousness which has taken the sacrifice and delved into matter, and it's now through us and through the evolutionary process rising up again, trying to find the light. And through many ways, including science, that humans may not be the last evolutionary product of the earth, and the earth itself might be more important. So it gets into more and more different levels of looking at supermind, where there is another hierarchy that develops between, and many levels of mind that develop.
Can you just take us through the difference between mind and supermind? What do you think that is?
The Sharibando is supermind and other things are really difficult. In most meditation and in the current flavor of things, people think meditation can be done in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can be through with it because it's a chore. And for people like Aurobindo and the mother, it was the whole lifetime, and it wasn't enough in that sense. I mean, whatever they were trying to do was, in essence, trying to see if they can traverse the mind realm, and where different minds means your mind, the higher mind, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind, and an overmind, and then a supermind. That's the hierarchy, and each one actually has certain attributes, and which they actually researched, they traversed. Some of that is noted down in Sri Aurobindo noted down in Savitri, which is this great epic, which is not easy to read, because it's actually his own struggles that he's actually took and put into paper. He was a genius par excellence. I think I would put him with Marx and somebody like that. He's even greater, and he's relatively unknown because he did what he did, and he traversed the supermind to actually say that at that point where you reach that consciousness, you're trying to bring it down to make Earth a newer reality for Earth, and a newer reality for everyone, or for Earth itself. And that's, I mean, it's not easy, and I'm not a Sri Aurobindo ashram guy. I'm actually just a science amateur guy and an amateur Aurobindo fan. But I think that's what it is about. It's about traversing your mind, understanding many levels of your psychic being, opening yourself to change, to the light from the door, that is the golden sheath that Dr. Karan Singh talked about, and then transforming. And I might not be so clear because it is complicated. You can ask me a question later.
But one thing I'd like to ask everybody is that do you see meditation or meditation after prayer, even meditation, as a technique of getting a spiritual experience? Can somebody share with us their understanding of how meditation affects their life from a spiritual point of view? Anybody would like to take it? Would you like to?
There are various ways of looking at the same thing. You talked about moving on to a state of awareness and then to intention. My experience is, even if one is doing meditation to start with, say 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and you go on increasing the time period, slowly what happens is, through the day there will be many moments when you find yourself in a meditative state. It stays with you. It doesn't go away after 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. Then another thing is, when you are practicing meditation on an continuing basis, you talked about being a witness and being a participant as well. Then what happens is, in my experience, many a times the action emerges not from the mind. It just emerges. The mind is not in the play. The As per the situation, action emerges from within you. You're not thinking, I'll do this, I'll do that, but it happens. And when action emerges within you without the intervention of the mind, then that action turns out to be the most appropriate for that moment in time and space. That is my experience. When you're constantly you grow to be in a state of meditation for longer periods of time through the day, through your normal work life. Yeah.
No, I think that's a very important point, because the what I described earlier was the continuous meditative state of observation is applies whether you are a devotee or you are a atheist or you are a Buddhist, doesn't matter. It is a state of seeing yourself in a from the highest possible place you can get to. I think what meditation does for most people who practice it regularly, it starts to elevate your mind, it starts to raise you in consciousness. We talked about last time kundalini awakening, going from earth to heaven, right, going upwards. But if you think about it in terms of layers of consciousness, right, like you were describing on the five koshas, that you are actually moving from body to mind, and then from mind to energy and cosmos, in stages, right? So the more you move up in mind, the less the mind, the brain, can interfere with your decision making, or you are actually being a detached observer. Now, for example, I practice Sri Vidya Upasana, like you practice Shiva worship. And what Sri Vidya Upasana does, it gets me to a place every morning where my entire being is energized and I feel energy, right? And it lasts for about maybe 2 to 3 hours afterwards, right? And when it's gone, you miss it. You wonder, where is it gone? You want to have it back. And that energy itself is a state of consciousness, right? Some people who are atheists just go jogging in the morning and meditate, and they stay energized all day. They're positive.
To do justice to Aurobindo, I think I should just quote a little bit from him. And this is in a letter that he wrote, and he wrote so much that you will never believe how much he actually managed to write and do anything else. The object of yoga is to enter into, and he's talking about integral yoga, and be possessed by the divine presence or consciousness. To love the divine for the divine's sake. Now, that's quite key. And to be tuned into your nature, into the nature of the divine, and in our will and works in life to be the instrument of the divine. So it takes it way forward. And the object is not to be a great yogi or a superman, although it may come, or to grab at the divine for the sake of ego's power, pride, and pleasure. It is not for moksha through liberation, though liberation comes by it. And all else may come, but these must not be your objects. The divine alone is your object. That's it.
See, what I think we can do is we'll do the science first. There's a 2.5 minute video I want to show you on the science. Now, I'm going to move quickly into this area, which is that we have known for a long time of the benefits of meditation through yoga, through Zen, through different techniques and schools around the world. But now neuroscience is playing a major role in this area of discovery. And for the first time, I think, and one of the speakers you'll hear talks about the fact that meditation is going to become like jogging was in the 1950s and 60s when it started, is that people started jogging and everybody else thought they were insane. And now jogging has become a worldwide phenomenon and everybody tries to do it, and things like that. He's saying that meditation is at the same place that it was for jogging, that suddenly we can train our mind, right? So in the West, obviously, like all Western things always happen, it becomes a packaged consumer thing to do, right? And we're going to look at that. So it's not mystical anymore, it's mind training, right? But I think there are some very useful learnings from neuroscience that I want to share with you just now, right? That'll show you that by turning off parts of your brain through meditation, you actually become clearer, more aware, more awake, right? And actually a better person, right? Now, when you go spiritual after that, which is the Indian way, right, then it's actually a better spirituality, a better religious experience, right? And I'm going to just show you this video just now. By the way, this research is from Stanford and MIT and Harvard. They've aggregated these studies together. So it's quite a remarkable research going on into meditation. And it was all started, yes, by the Buddhists with the Richie Davidson of the Mind Science Foundation, Mind and Life Institute. And they are the ones who are pushing this research tremendously. But there's also research now going on from the Yogi Bhajan people on Kundalini Yoga as well, which shows that higher states of mystical experience also, what's the scientific area of that. And with that we'll talk on another day. Today I just wanted to show you that basic meditation, what it does to your brain, right? And I think that you'll agree that the next speaker I want to just show you is why meditate, is an American again. I apologize, so many Americans, but who talks about why he now sees meditation as something he wants to do, but not as something related to religion. And that's a big jump, because Ken Wilber, a teacher in America, said that if more of the world meditates, right, and I think Isha Jagi Vasudeva said this as well, he says the more you learn to meditate, the less chance a society has of being destructive, of being at war, of destroying the environment, of intolerance, of communal violence. It goes down. So, most of these teachers who are trying, whether it's Sri Ravi Shankar or Ken Wilber, who are trying to introduce meditation en masse, right, to large groups of people, actually have a scientific foundation that they're dealing with here, which is that it does reduce that potential to be destructive, to be depressed, to be anxious, to be, and that's a very important thing in my mind, So I think that what turned out to be a byproduct of dhyana, of yoga and dhyana, is actually going to be the reason so many people in the world might take up meditation, Neuroplasticity, what they discovered over the last 5-10 years, is that the brain doesn't create new neurons after a certain childhood or in your teenage years, but it can continue to create new synaptic pathways in the brain right until old age, and even in the 90s, and people in the 80s and 90s, right? And what that means is that new thought frameworks, networks can be introduced into the brain at every stage of age, no matter what. So what they found is that in neuroplasticity, if you introduce a positive thought, music, art, ideas, they actually create new synaptic pathways over time, right? So if you learn to play the piano, if you learn to do anything that's repetitious but harmonious or positive, right, you actually create new brain pathways, right? And what's exciting about that is that one can replace negative emotions, negative thoughts, or rubbish thoughts, too much thought, with a positive thought like that, whether through art or repetition or music or breathing. These are all techniques that are there, right? So I think that stillness is an observation phenomena, right? But imagine being in art mode when you're listening to music. Everything else gets shut out. You're in one focused state, listening to that, singing that music, right? And being in that zone. And if it's a higher music, by the way, they've shown that music of certain types induce different types of parts of the chakras or the meditation areas. So if you listen to drumming and rock and roll, you're dealing with the lower chakras. Well, if you listen to ragas and solfeggio and gentler music, classical, Western and Eastern music, you're dealing with the higher regions.
See, in our country's culture and tradition, there is a word which is common to both, and that is sadhana. The word is there for a very, very specific reason. We use the word sadhana in spirituality. We also use the word sadhana in music. And it's because the process in both is very, very subtle and similar. So I think if we explore that a little more, I think we'll find some more answers to, So I'm not going to get into that right away, but I think I would like people to think about these terms, which are quite carefully chosen in our tradition, as to why they have that place.
We feel that in today's modern world, while it is easy to dismiss the modern experience as short-term thinking, attention deficit, we're not clear. There's also a lot of luggage that comes with scriptures and with ancient knowledge and ancient wisdom teaching that is very difficult for most of us, right? It's very difficult for me. I have a great problem with it, and I'm sure most of you agree with that. And we are here for that reason, because one of the reasons why we are here and we're gathering every month is that we want to explore the human potential, the human consciousness potential, right? But not necessarily veiled in allegory and scripture and ideas, even though those ideas are absolutely valid. It is like saying that in the Upanishads we knew about quantum physics. That's not true. They knew about an essence that was similar to what science is trying to describe quantum physics as today, an essential fields of dimension. Monish, I'd like you to take that in a second. But the fact is that we are living in an age, and I'm not talking about the smartphone age, I'm talking about vast knowledge and data becoming available to us, right? Which is incredible today, neuroscience, brain, quantum physics, we're looking at this vast, fantastic knowledge base right now, right? And I cannot, myself, I feel very patronized or dismissed when somebody tells me, this was all in the Upanishad, this was all there, it's always been there. Agreed, in essence, I agree. In essence, I agree with you. But in practice, there's got to be a way for me to live my modern life and pursue it. And this is my difficulty, right? And it's not a challenge. I'm not challenging this, because I also am a student of scripture and I read Vivekananda and I've read it vastly for years. But somehow I want to feel that we can distill the essence, right, and the practice without dismissing the person as short-sighted and too quick because not everybody can do what you do. We can't. We get up in the morning, problems, life, what we have to deal with. So can we introduce practices which are psychological, which are spiritual in nature, right? Without simplifying everything, if you see what I mean. This is my question to you.
I'm trying to go back in time to about, in the 15 years in the corporate sector in my time, and later part of which I was part of the senior management team in a software business. When it comes to management ideas, thoughts, principles, and when you need to do better and need to manage the business better, you start reading up. Okay? You read all kinds of stuff, whatever you lay hands on. And that time so much of internet had not come in, but still it was quite there. And we attend as many workshops as we can, and so on. What I'm trying to say is, when there is a deep urge to know and to discover and to realize, I think some of this, I'm not saying you need to read all the scriptures. Actually, there is one statement which Shankaracharya makes, which says that whatever there is there in these crores of statements has been said in this quarter of a verse, nothing more. So it is a simple idea that is required to take it forward. So it's not how much you read. The idea of so many texts, it's like so many texts being available for any other branch of knowledge. In this also it is there, because just one book is not going to be sufficient. Now here there are students of, as you studied English, physics, geography, whatever, it was not one book which gave you everything. It's multiple texts, because you want different perspectives. And when you go to history, something like that, you would have many more interpretations of what history was. Okay, so here also, please do not get enamored by the fact that there are, 1008 texts of this kind. But the idea is, you start anywhere.
I think enamored is the wrong word. I think terrified. The fact that we're terrified of the 1008 texts, and also the interpretation of them through the ages. You see, last month, we had a very good question, which was that why is Zen practice in Japan so simple and elegant and concise and clear? Right? I don't remember who asked that. Somebody here asked that. You did, right? Somebody did last night. And why is our Vedic and Tantric and Shakti so complex, so convoluted, so many essays, so much, the complex Indian mind? Why do we have such an elaborate complexity? I'm not asking you this question. I'm just generally discussing it.
The use of the word enamored was deliberate.
I know, and I'm.
Because I would like you to be enamored by it.
But we would like you to write a simple book like Swami Vivekananda wrote a book in 1896 called Raja Yoga, right? Tiny little book, right? Maybe 100 pages maximum, right? Which in one go, for Western audiences, condensed the teachings of the four yogas and the final yoga, Raja Yoga, and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali also he wrote in that, right. And it was a brilliant book. Why? Because he did three things in that book. One, he demystified everything, which was very important today. We need you to be more demystifying, sir. I need your help on this one. The second is that he gave technique. He gave a practice. So if you actually read that book, you will learn the Soham meditation, you will learn breath control, you will learn how to breathe, and then go towards Raja Yoga, right? So it was a classic book for that purpose. And the third one, that he wrote it in a new language that nobody had seen before. An English that was modern, that was contemporary, that was fantastic at that time. Western and Eastern audience. So then all Eastern students started having that book. The Raja Yoga became the book before Yogananda came along with his book later. It was that book that every occultist spiritual practitioner had, right? So what I am suggesting, and maybe this is something you can do, right, is that we want that to happen for these deep, deep, meaningful things. Whether it's Vedanta or whether it's Kundalini Kriya Yoga, somebody needs to explain it in such a way that not that we only have 5 minutes attention span. We do have only 5 minutes attention span, but we want to also grasp it in a haiku Japanese style, which is that can I grasp it, and then if I grasp it, how do I practice it? And if I practice it, will it change my life? And if the answer is obviously yes to all of those, which is what you are saying, then I can go back and do deeper study, right? But the first experience that all of you want, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong and correct me, please, is you want a vision of it, a picture of it that makes sense to you. That why should I meditate? Why should I even bother to contemplate? Because if the rasa is not there, that taste after the music is not there, even a 5 minutes of meditation, you won't do it. You'll just, enough. My wife never meditates. Jagriti never meditates, right? But I meditate. So I think each person goes to it in a different way. But she does it in different ways. She looks at beauty. She looks at art. She looks at different things. Now, the higher states of consciousness, right, which is where Vedanta is one of the highest ones. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And you believe it is the supreme one, the Upanishads, right, is teachings of people who have experienced that vast consciousness, right, shared with us. And if you actually read the Upanishads, they're actually quite simple. They're not complex big books. They're quite simple, right? Some of the Upanishads are very short. Isha Upanishad, these ones, they're very short. And read some of the good authors who have converted them. But my suggestion is, my question, now I want to open it up a bit more now. So the question for you is that how do you, all of you, reconcile meditative life, spiritual life with your ordinary life? I want to talk about that a bit. Anybody, please?
First of all, we are all discussing meditation. I somehow feel there is one big question: Can you meditate? you can at the most make yourself available to a stage where where you can be in a meditative state. We cannot so therefore there is no specified process or a technique that you can master for meditation. That is what I think of meditation. And as far as the carrying the luggage of Vedanta and what Raja is asking a question, it is like you eat a lot of food, but what is important is what you absorb. You may be eating a lot of good stuff, but what is useful to your body is what you can absorb. Absorption is more important, digestion is more important. So, since each one of us is different chemically, biologically, we are coming from different environmental, different circumstances. So, the meditative state of each one of us has to be different. Since it has to be different, so there can be no scientific technique that anybody can give anyone that you follow this and you will reach to a certain state. Why Zen is very important and why Zen is simple? Because they have one basic principle which says that everyone has to discover the wheel by himself. So there is a lot of freedom given. Whereas in our process of teaching meditation, the first condition is that you go and learn it from someplace. That is the prerequisite, which I don't think is practical. So therefore, I believe you cannot learn meditation. You can allow yourself to be in a meditation every day at a specific time. And as far as the 6 o'clock meditation or ending the day meditation is concerned, why do you do it? Just pick up one good thing from your scriptures, that there are certain times in a day slotted, allowed, which can help you to meditate, which are the morning hours. Why do you carry so much of burden and then want to sit for meditation? Do it in the morning hours. That is, everybody has that feeling that after the body is put to rest and it's fresher in the morning hours. And the need to meditation is your desire from within. That if you believe that there is something else other than or even higher than this your physical presence, if you believe there is a world beyond this, then you will want to sit and meditate. And once you sit and meditate, the calmness and the fruits that you get, you cannot share it even with your closest buddy. You just cannot. And that is the one, when you touch that, you will want to sit for your meditation every day. And you get into a habit that you start missing it. So here I believe, again, I'm not being judgmental. This is, I believe that you learn all the knowledge and you meditate just to unlearn it. You just meditate just to unlearn it. You want to clean your slate again so that and for that, you have to be in a state of a child of 4 to 5 years old. You have to be simple. Because my teacher says, you have to use the KISS technology. Keep it simple and stupid.
Yes.
So, I don't
Just to
want
tell you
carry
that she's a student of a great teacher called Yogi Raj Siddhanath, Surya Yoga. Pune, right? And she's a teacher also for him. And she teaches Kundalini Kriya Yoga.
Says you can't teach meditation.
She teaches Kriya. She teaches a Kriya.
You can't.
Can I make one or two comments?
Yeah.
No, I think we should get down to that half an hour thing that you're going to do. I just have two comments to make. One is, there's a confusion, I think, between the sutras, which is the thread of the teaching, and the bhashyas. You see, once you get into the commentaries, whether it is Shankara or anybody else, then you are lost, frankly. because the commentaries are so detailed and they are so complicated. So the thing to do with the Upanishads is not to go to the commentaries, just to go. And a sutra you can have in a few words, as Swamiji said, in a few words you can get the teaching. So the idea that we are burdened by all these bhashyas and all, I don't accept. I never read any bhashya, I just read the Upanishad itself. I'm not going to give examples. Second point I'd like to make is that this business of meditating in the morning and meditating in the evening is all very fine for meditators. I'm not a meditator, I'm a prayerer. So what I do is, when the Raj Sabha is at its peak and everybody is shouting and screaming at each other, I have my mala with me. I have my mala with
Om
me.
Namah
मैं बैठ के
Shivaya, Om
माला
Namah
जपता रहता हूँ.
Shivaya.
That for me is sadhana.
It is a
I don't have
sadhana.
to wait for 6 o'clock. It is something you have to do throughout your day. Thank you.
Actually, I wanted to, Kanchanji, I wanted to bring you in. I tell you why. Because one of the great traditions of India, which is not in Vedanta, is the japa tradition, right? Which is to repetition, right? A lot of traditions have the japa tradition, the Sikh tradition, the tantric traditions, all where the repetition of a mantra or a word brings the person into a state of alpha wave bliss, of joy, that leads to a meditative state, right? Now, japa is a very powerful tool, and in fact, India more than anywhere else has that been really done PhD program in, the japa methodology, and now we've taken it to the West with transcendental meditation and all of that, it's gone. But the idea of a repetitious, of worship, prayer turning into meditation, right? Those who practice Kundalini Kriyas or Tantra or any of those techniques of goddess worship, they use mantra or japa, and Sikhism also does, and the gentleman has gone there, which is to induce a state of blissful rhythm in the mind, right? Kirtan, exactly. Please give her the mic. She wants to speak. She wants to speak. Say it.
No, I said when he was saying that how when he sits to do his riyaz, in the Sikh tradition again, our whole Gurbani is in classical ragas. And they say that is the highest way of prayer and meditation. When you sing, you are one with the Lord. You sing His praises, and so Simran and Kirtan and Jap leads you to that state of bliss. And again, like you said about being a yantra, again, Sikh Guru Devi also told that you are a yantra in the hands of God, and the way He plays on you, that is the way you're supposed to live, and He speaks through you and acts through you.
Just a quick point. More to comment on what I said. The 6 p.m. I took was more an example. And one of the things about spiritual life is it's not time oriented. It flows in and through every moment of our life. So how much we are aware and awake to every second or instance of time during the day. So spiritual life and life are not two separate things. Can't be separated.
One thing I'd like to say on the japa thing, which is that I remember, I think it was, I can't remember who said it, but it says that we have to trick our brains into a state of meditation, because you have to get past the noise, right? And japa, I think it was Guruji Amritananda, a great tantric teacher. He told me that if you have 1,000 thoughts in the day, let's say, right? Can you bring it down to 500? Can you bring it down to 100? Can you bring it down to 10? Can you bring it down to 2, right? And he said the 2 that they recommend in Tantra is, one is a mantra and the other is a thought about the mantra, right? So you have the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om, and then you're saying, if you're thinking about something else, think about the mantra. Now, that is a way of, but that technique, which is the subjective versus objective methodology of different schools, the subjective methodology says by controlling the mind, by calming it down, by prayer, singing, puja, mantra, you bring it to a state where it is then in that still state from which it can then see the light and it can go forward, right? And the objective way is, which is a lot of what Vedanta is about, which is the questioning mind, that who am I? Am I that? Am I that thought? Am I this feeling? What am I? Am I these things, right? Which is also what Buddhism is about in a lot of ways, observation, right? And both actually work. Both work, but both depend on your own inclination. If you want to move the subjective route and you want to repeat the mantra until you get harmony, do so. Bring your brain to that place, right? But if you want to observe your mind, if you want to breathe and watch your breath and say, who am I? Like Ramana Maharshi did, right? You know, koham soham. You know, who am I? What am I? What is this mind? What am I thinking? Am I this body? Am I this mind? You know, these thoughts. So depending on your inclination, you should research and go deeper in that direction, right? And if you have no desire to go spiritual, the koham soham is not spiritual. It's not about God. It's about me, right? About myself, my mind, and then there's always Zen and mindfulness, which is the practice of watching yourself, observe your breath, your body, right? Look, you're right. It's a shopping mall out there of meditation practices and books on how-tos and all that right now, right? It goes back to my earlier first point, which is that meditation is about trying to bring you to an observation place of your own mind, to be still, right? Then intention, right? Which is, I now want to understand who I am, or I want to have a Kundalini experience, or I want to have light, or I want to see nirvana. Those are destinations inside yourself. They are not the process of doing meditation. Meditation itself is a continuous process of being. Am I here in this moment right now? Krishnamurti, by the way. Has anybody read Krishnamurti? Right, there you go. Anybody else?
He stayed as my guest for 6 weeks.
There you go. So he's rubbed off on you, I hope.
I didn't agree with anything.
Exactly. He was the ultimate iconoclast. You know what iconoclast means, everybody? That means he broke idols, right? That if you believe anything, shatter it, right? Because the moment you say, this is the way, that's somebody else's path, you follow that, right? He was an icon. And so from him comes, be the light to yourself. He paraphrased the Buddha and he said, be the light to yourself, right? And what that meant was that you have to ask yourself some very difficult questions, right? But they're actually very simple, right? You know, which is, who am I? You know, am I this chattering mind, or is there another mind I can have? Is there an observer I can be? Is there a higher state of consciousness? Is my consciousness just this? Or are there states of higher consciousness I can go towards? Right? Right? Everybody follow me there? So am I going towards super consciousness? You know, just 1 second. I just finished my point. So everything beyond your mind is your discovery. Other people can tell you what they saw. The rishis will say, we saw this, we saw a light, we saw illumination, we saw Babaji sitting there, we saw whatever. Everybody will show you, look, this is what I saw, right? I saw the Sri Yantra Chakra, I saw this, I saw that, or I saw illumination, or I felt the sound in my indriyas, in my head. They're all going to tell you different things, but unless you experience that, it is just somebody else's experience. And the only reason I meditate is for those blissful experiences, because I've tasted them and they are amazing, right? Oh my God. And then you want to have them. And then you want to keep going back. Who said keep going back and back and back? Exactly. You know, and so I think that, and let's come to you. Come.
What I believe is that it's better to survey the land before digging right away. I mean, you can take all the opinions and everything.
So you need some satellite photographs. You should have satellite photographs, soil sample.
Take all the before you start digging right away.
Check the water table, local regional data. Yeah, I think that the secret, the advice I would give him is not to dig at all. You know. but yes, please.
Discussion up till now has been absolutely fantastic, but I think that it's only been theoretical. We've been talking about different ways of meditating and how you go about it and the different methods that are there. I was wondering if it's possible that all of us together could spend 5 or 10 minutes and maybe do one of the practices that you've been talking about. There are various people present here, Swamiji, who probably does a lot of guided meditations and things like that. Do you think people are up for it? Maybe doing meditation for
No?
5 minutes together?
I tell you what, let us just do silence. All right? Let us all sit. Try and sit as straight as you can. Keep the spine as straight as you can. And just sit. And only thing I'll suggest is listen with a maximum of what you can hear. Feel everything inside your body, observe your body, and just be your breathing. Okay? For a few minutes. Let's just do it. Do a practice, do it daily. Start with 5 minutes. Do it, spread it out. You know, it's like diabetic eating. You spread out small meals through the whole day. You don't have to eat one giant meal in the morning. Hope for the best, right? You got to go small. And see everything. In Zen, they say walking is meditation. You know, handshaking is a meditation. Being with someone is a meditation, right? When I look at you and I'm talking to you, am I really looking at you? Or am I thinking about how you remind me of somebody else, or I have to go somewhere now? I'm busy, right? Am I really with you? Right? Am I talking to you, with listening to you? Right? That itself is meditation, right? It's a state. Right? So I'm going to call it a quit today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you.
Thank you.